Have you ever noticed how change begins long before it can be seen? Before a word is spoken, before a movement takes shape, there's something, a trembling, deep inside the quiet space of awareness. The revolution always begins in the invisible. What if the greatest transformations in human history were not born in the streets, but first in the silence of one person's mind? Martin Luther King Jr. is remembered as a voice of thunder, a man whose words moved nations, whose courage reshaped the moral landscape of the modern world. But beneath the speeches and marches, there was another king, a quieter one, a man who wrestled with doubt and fear, who spent long nights alone, listening not to applause, but to the still voice of conscience. That inner space, where conviction meets uncertainty, is where today's reflection lives. King once said, "Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks, is it politic? Vanity asks, is it popular? But conscience asks, is it right?" And maybe this is not only a moral question. Maybe it's also a question of consciousness itself. When we act from conscience, what is actually moving us? Is it the voice of an individual self? Or something deeper? A kind of awareness that sees beyond the personal? King's courage was not the absence of fear. It was the realization that something within him was larger than fear, more enduring than his own comfort or safety. That realization, that quiet knowing, is the birthplace of what he called the beloved community. A vision not only of justice in the outer world, but of unity within the human spirit. Imagine for a moment, you are sitting alone, in a dimly lit room, and outside there is noise. The noise of conflict, of division, of misunderstanding. You can feel it inside too. The same divisions, the same resistance, the same ache for peace. What would it mean to begin there? Not with the noise, but with the stillness behind it. This was King's true revolution. Not only against systems of oppression, but against the illusion that we are separate from one another. He believed that to change the outer world, we must first awaken to the inner one, to that dimension of consciousness, where love is not sentiment, but perception. Love, for him, was a way of seeing, a kind of clarity that dissolves the other. In this, King's insight echoes something ancient, something found not only in the Gospels, but in the stillness of Buddhist meditation, and the flowing wisdom of Taoist thought. The Buddha spoke of interbeing, that nothing exists in isolation. Each thought, each action, ripples through the fabric of everything else. In Taoism, they call it wu-wei, action through alignment, doing without forcing, a harmony between intention and the unfolding of the world. And in King's practice, this same current takes form as nonviolence, not as strategy, but as consciousness. Nonviolence is not weakness, it is awareness, recognizing that hatred cannot end hatred, because they are made of the same substance. Only the perception of unity can dissolve the illusion of division. Modern neuroscience touches this truth, too, in quieter, subtler language. When we look at another person, our brains mirror their expressions, their pain, their joy. We are wired for empathy, literally connected in our perception. But empathy requires space. It needs the silence of the mind. A pause between reaction and response. That pause is consciousness itself. When King stood before crowds, when he faced anger and violence, he often paused. You can hear it in his rhythm, his cadence. Those pauses were not hesitation. They were awareness moving through him. In that silence, he was not reacting. He was seeing the humanity in his oppressors, seeing fear beneath hatred, seeing love waiting, unseen beneath it all. And so I wonder, what does this mean for us? In the quiet moments of our own lives, most of us are not leading marches or facing imprisonment, but every day we face smaller revolutions, moments when fear meets truth, a difficult conversation, a choice between comfort and integrity, a pause before we send a message we might regret. In those moments, the same question arises. Is it right? Not as moral judgment, but as an inner vibration, a knowing that hums beneath thought. What happens when we listen to that? Try this. Take a slow breath. Let the body soften. Let the mind rest. Now recall a time when you felt wronged, when someone's words or actions tightened something in you. Feel the weight of it. The heat in the chest, the tension in the jaw. Now ask, very softly, who is the one that feels hurt? Not as philosophy, as direct inquiry. Can you find a boundary where you end and they begin? Notice how quickly thought returns. Stories, defenses, conclusions. But beneath that, there's a silence, a space that holds both you and the other. That space is the same awareness King spoke from. It is not passive. It is not indifferent. It is alive, tender, clear. From that clarity, right action arises, naturally, like breath. This is the inner revolution. A shift from reacting to awakening. In psychology, we might call this integration. The merging of conscious and unconscious. In spiritual language, it is awakening. Different words, same direction, toward wholeness. When King spoke of the beloved community, he was describing a collective state of consciousness. A world where the illusion of separation dissolves. But it begins, always, in the unseen mind of one person, who chooses awareness over fear. That is the quiet courage of consciousness. There's a story. A night in 1956. King had just received a death threat, one among many. His wife and baby daughter were asleep. He sat alone in the kitchen, his hands trembling. And in that stillness, he said he felt something. Not a voice exactly, but a deep knowing. A peace that said, stand up for truth. Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, like the stillness under the surface of the ocean. That moment, he said, changed everything. And maybe this is how transformation always begins. Not in thunder, but in silence. Across cultures, the mystics say the same thing. The Tao is not found in struggle. The Buddha awakened not through argument, but by sitting still under a tree. And King, in his own way, sat beneath that same tree. The roots reach everywhere, through soil, through memory, through us. Every human being, at some point, faces the invitation to sit still and listen, not to the noise of the world, but to the subtle pulse beneath it. Maybe that's all consciousness really is. Listening deeply enough to hear the quiet movement of truth within us. It's not about adopting a belief or holding an ideal. It's about seeing clearly, directly, tenderly. King's power came from that seeing. He saw a world of injustice, and yet also saw through it to the deeper possibility already alive beneath the pain. Can we do the same? In our own hearts, in our daily interactions, can we see through anger, through difference, through the stories of me and you, to glimpse, even for a moment, that luminous field, where there is no enemy, in small ways? This practice can begin now. The next time you feel misunderstood, pause. Before explaining, before defending, breathe. Notice the urge to control, to prove, to push. Then, gently, let it go. Ask instead, what would love see here? Not as emotion, but as perception. Love sees without dividing. It listens. It moves from wholeness. And from that seeing, clarity arises. Sometimes that clarity will act. Sometimes it will stay still. Both can be right. This is nonviolence. Not as politics, but as awareness in motion. Perhaps what King discovered, and what we continue to rediscover, is that consciousness is not private. When you sit quietly, your peace is not only yours. It ripples outward, through tone, gesture, presence. Just as anger spreads quickly, so does calm. Just as fear can infect, so can awareness. Each of us, in the small choices of attention, is shaping the collective field of what humanity becomes. The outer revolution and the inner one are the same movement, just viewed from different directions. So perhaps tonight, as you lie in bed, before sleep takes you, you might close your eyes and feel the quiet hum of your own awareness. That is the same awareness that lived in Martin Luther King Jr., the same awareness that lived in the Buddha, and in countless beings who have seen through the veil of fear into the simplicity of love. It is not something to become. It is what you already are. The task is only to remember. Change begins in the invisible, in the stillness before the word, in the breath before the act. Listen there. That silence is not empty. It's the birthplace of everything that matters. Thank you for listening. This has been What We Are, a journey into consciousness, perception, and the quiet mystery of being alive. Until next time, be gentle with what you notice, and with whoever you are becoming.